This is a very brief overview of the reAotearoa1 and the A1 series of subcultivars created by Mac in New Zealand for New Zealand. These are some of the modern day uses, not all of them by a long shot, but just some in case people are unaware, which it's unlikely that they are, but if you're unaware, there is a whole host of things. But more importantly, it's useful for all of our New Zealand Aotearoa government's targets of confronting climate change, having more sustainable ways of farming, etc., etc. Every night in the news you see issues related to farming and people wanting to blame other people. Well, there's a solution right here. Anyway, this is our business card. Some people don't like the logo. He's been with me for a long time, created by a friend of mine some time ago and totally owned by myself. And up the top you see the address of the website where this will be posted along with other information that's useful and helpful. Rightio, so what is being offered? Well, really, the overall thing here is to Aotearoa1 and the A1 series and Hempseed Holdings Limited is relatively unknown in New Zealand. And this is an attempt at very briefly putting us front and foremost in front of people. And we're also aware that there is a growers group that want to create a New Zealand cultivar, and we have 5 of them over here, so they may or may not be interested. But it's also to show that these cultivars represent a significant business opportunity to anyone that's interested in them and has the passion. And you have to have the passion. No passion, no going. This is just an extract from the MedSafe list of approved cultivars. Haven't put them all up. You can see that 4 of them have got A1 in front of them. Those are all created by Mac and Aotearoa1 down the bottom. So 25% of currently available seeds, hemp seeds in New Zealand, and we do have them trademarked, as you saw on the first slide. The gold bit down the bottom is the trademark. But not 25% of what is grown in New Zealand, and mostly that's to keep control of the cultivar. People are well aware there's an open source cultivar out there and everybody's got hold of it, and it seems to have deteriorated regarding THC tests and that sort of thing, which may be related to people trying to grow medicinal, it may not. We don't know the answers to those sort of things, but we need to keep good control of this, so only shareholders can grow it, and those shareholders are committed to a code of conduct and a shareholders agreement to ensure that the integrity of the cultivar is maintained. As me with Associate Professor John McPartland at Massey University in 2000, I think it was 6. Anyway, I'm not entirely sure. John, very interesting guy. I'm not sure what's happened to him now. He is the co-author of Hemp Pests and Diseases. And I wrote a couple of papers with him. When I say I, really he did the writing and I supplied the information. And a very nice guy that supplied the original material that I started working with. This is just done here because I like it. I think it very much epitomises humanity. There's a lot of wisdom around, and we seem to be hell-bent on making sure that none of it attaches itself to us. And there is a lot of wisdom in the Aotearoa1 and A1 series of generic landrace Aotearoa New Zealand industrial hemp cultivars. And I call them landrace because they actually are now. If you want to see what I've done previously, this 28-minute doc code by Kate Bradbury and Bill Morris, I think somewhere around about 2006, I significantly changed and got the power industry legislated, and hopefully managed to stop it going the same way as every other abalone fishery in the world. Vis-a-vis the USA, they catch theirs in dozens when they're allowed to catch them. People are still catching tons in New Zealand, and there do seem to be plenty there, but the more the population grows, the more pressure there will be on it. It's a simple mathematical equation. Rightio, this is reAotearoa1. It's actually a couple of shades deeper green than that. It's dioecious, seed and fibre. It's actually a great little cultivar. And you can see me in the left-hand picture. I'm holding a female head, but right beside it, on the same level, are several male flowering heads. And the next picture is me in the same paddock, I think pretty much on the same day, just showing the density. Now that looks quite dense, but it's actually not. It's between 4 and 40 plants per square metre. And the reason I grow like that is because hemp is not wheat and it's not barley. And I'm not going to go into that now. That's not the purpose of this one. But everywhere around the world they're growing it like wheat and barley, and they're harvesting it like wheat and barley, and that isn't going to work long term if you want high yields. Anyway, that's simply my opinion, not yours. This one I love. It's the A1 monoperp, and the one on the right shows why I love it. It goes this beautiful, intense, dark purple. It's got higher stearidonic acid than the others, and it's just a gorgeous little plant. It doesn't create huge volumes of seeds, unfortunately, so you would have to have a specific outcome sought for this one, either in the cosmetic industry or something like that. But a gorgeous little plant all the same. It does look a bit tacky towards the end of the season, and it persists long after all the others have died. It looks dead, but it's not. It's just getting really tacky. This is A1 com seed. To my mind, this probably is the only one that suits it to the way suits itself to the way that industrial hemp is currently being cultivated. You could grow this like wheat and barley, and you could harvest it the same, and you would probably do very well doing that, because it's a single stalk. It's low. Down here it grows to 1.2 to 1.5 meters tall. It seeds from the ground to the tip of the stalk, and as I said, the only one, dioecious, male and female on different plants. The only one that I think really suits the way that we're farming at the moment. But as I said, that's not the purpose of this. This is an introduction to the seed stocks, not an introduction to Mac's thoughts on the industry. Right, my wee favourites, or my big favourites, A1 Mac Mono and A1 HCFX on the right. HCFX, Hemp Cottage Farm Christmas Tree. Mac Mono, Mac, my name, Mac, Axel, my son, and Chris, my wife. Mono, as it's monoecious, male and female on the same plant. Something that I was seeking to create for a long time, and eventually got there. HCFX is the last one to be approved, even though I knew about it for an awful long time when you're doing all this on a budget, and other people are more interested in making money, which is what they're in the industry for, then it's quite difficult to do more than one cultivar per annum. Anyway, they're absolutely brilliant and very high producers. Rightio, Mac Mono, as I said, monoecious, broadacre farming and market garden regime. Now I'll explain the market garden regime just very briefly, because again that's not the purpose of this. Market garden regime, I had a friend turn up when I was growing at Massey. He looked at the plants, he said they're starving. What's wrong with them? You've got to grow them at wider spacings. We did a wagon wheel study that showed that he was correct, and I started feeding and isolated one plant, and I got 768 grams of seeds off that, and that sold me, because we'd done the numbers on the per square metre per hectare, and it was incredibly low, and it still is. And that's because people are growing it like wheat and barley. It's a long, thin stalk. They're all crammed together. They're all starving, and at the top you get a little seed head. But anyway, this one, if Mac Mono was grown for fibre, 70 to 90 days would be all you were doing it for. And realistically, you can see if the plant's allowed to express itself, it turns into a monster, and each one of those seed heads is well over a metre long and cram-packed with seeds. And I plant one per square metre. You get a kilo off each plant. That's 10,000 kilos off a hectare. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that's what you'll get, because you have to feed it as well. I feed humic acid in large quantities once the seeds are starting to be produced on the plant. So, you know, I'm very, very wary of people coming back to me and saying, but you said you would get a kilo of plant. No, what I tell people is you have the potential to get a kilo of plant if you do it the way I tell you, or find another way that works for you. Anyway, up to a kilo a plant. Pretty good, eh? When the average in New Zealand is 1.2, 1.6. Some people claim 1.8, but when you press them, they're pretty hard pressed to come up with the evidence. Anyway, at the end of the day, you find out for yourself. Don't believe what other people tell you. You give it a go yourself. And that's Mac Mono showing the seed heads. Not the seed heads, my apologies. Showing the flowers. Underneath there are seeds starting to form, but they are in the very, very early stages. One of the things I've noticed with the hemp plants is they can do all their male inflorescence long before any seed heads appear, and I'm sort of puzzled. Where do they come from? Is the pollen absorbed by the plant and then produces viable seed heads? That's a question I don't know the answer to, despite the years that I've spent living in the crop, but one that I have very strong feelings regarding. I'm absolutely convinced that there don't have to be any visible seed heads for you to get a massive crop once it's been pollinated. And just another picture, and yes, that is the same plant side by side, just because it looks good and something good to end it on. That's A1 HTFX, and it is a super cultivar. This particular lot was grown by Aaron Silcock, and he did an absolutely excellent job of it. Thank you, Aaron and Sarah. Hemp pollen, overlooked by most people. It can be collected as long as the male flowers are closed when you harvest them. So far, I've been unable to produce a cultivar that's only males, but it does have big potential, because there are components in there that are worth a lot of money per gram. So it's certainly something that's well worth pursuing, and there's heaps of other things too. If you can imagine it, you can possibly do it. This is just to show that A1 HTFX was around very early on. This is 2005. I knew right then that I had a really high producing plant. Grows to 1.8 to 2 metres down here. A1 Mac Mono is the slightly better, averages 2.0 to 2.2 meters. For every degree, as an average, for every degree of latitude you go north, add half a metre of height, till by the time you get up to somewhere like Hamilton, you're looking at 14-foot tall plants, which is pretty impressive till you try to get a harvester around them. This is just a sample of the analysis. This one shows a combination of THC and THCA of 0.071, which is still miles under the allowed 0.35. On average, the A1 series come back at 0.56. The THCA is, despite what Medicines Control will tell you, it's a lie. It was never measured in the early days. It is measured now, and they haven't increased the THC limit. The whole thing needs taken out from the Ministry of Health and Motor, because it's not a drug. It's clearly not a drug, so it needs moved out and given its own legislation with a maximum limit of 1%. You'd still need a license, because you'd have to prove that you were growing, irrespective of whether marijuana was legalised or not, or cannabis was legalised. You would still need a license to ensure that you were growing industrial hemp, which is an artificial impediment to development, because we should be looking to create the best cultivars, not the best cultivars with the lowest THC or THCA or whatever. However, that's the world we live in today, and I say misnamed medical cannabis mostly because there is a cultivar that keeps going over the limit, and I suspect that's because people are trying to take the cheap method of growing medical cannabis, but I don't know any of this, so it's probably better left unsaid. This is just an analysis done by Analytica that shows some of the contents. They did admit at the time that this was their first go and they weren't that good at it, so it's likely that there's significantly more in the A1 series than this shows. So, iHemp is part of the solution to a lot of the issues in the world today, but more importantly, from your perspective, it has the potential to be a great earner. And on that, we'll end, and thank you for your participation. Really appreciated. This is signing off from me and signing off from home.